Leon Hale had always been more comfortable with machines than with people. On the outer rim of the galaxy, at the quiet research outpost known as Epsilon 7, he spent his days repairing engines, calibrating energy cores, and fine-tuning life support systems. The station was small but efficient, a hub for human engineers, scientists, and the occasional diplomat visiting to coordinate frontier aid missions. Life here was routine, predictable, and safe, or at least as safe as a remote outpost on the edge of explored space could be. Leon liked it that way. People were unpredictable. Machines, by contrast, obeyed the laws of physics without question. A generator would hum if it was fixed correctly. A sensor would calibrate precisely when tuned, and an energy conduit would flow with the exact amount of power required. He knew the universe was vast and dangerous, but in his little corner of it, he could keep things orderly, neat, and manageable. That was before the shuttle arrived. It was a quiet morning when the communications panel buzzed with an incoming signal. Leon glanced at the screen, expecting a routine status update from a supply ship. Instead, the display showed the emblem of a species he had only read about in old interstellar reports. The SCIFI. A small, blue-skinned humanoid race with glowing bioluminescent markings that changed with their moods. The shuttle had been damaged in a pirate raid, the report said, and it was carrying survivors seeking refuge. The station had prepared for emergencies, but nothing in Leon's calm life had prepared him for what walked through the airlock. Among the refugees was a small, bright-eyed girl, no older than 10 by human standards, with luminous markings across her cheeks and forehead. Her skin shimmered softly under the station lights, and her wide eyes scanned the room with a mixture of curiosity and fear. She clutched a worn backpack tightly to her chest, her tiny fingers trembling. "Are you the engineer?" she asked in a voice that was clear and musical despite her obvious nervousness. Leon hesitated. He was used to adults who demanded explanations or shouted instructions. Children, especially alien children, were something else entirely. He nodded. "I'm Leon Hale. I repair machines here. Are you okay?" She tilted her head. "I think so. The ship. It broke. Everything broke. We had to come here." Leon studied her. She was small, frail-looking, and utterly fearless at the same time. Most humans would have clung to an adult, terrified of the unknown. But she had stepped off her damaged shuttle on her own, her glowing markings flickering with excitement and caution. "You'll be safe here," Leon said softly. The girl's eyes widened with relief, and she smiled, a small, bright thing that lit up her blue skin. "I'm Nira," she said. Leon nodded. "Leon, welcome to Epsilon 7. The next days were a whirlwind. The SCIFI were unlike anything Leon had experienced. They communicated in a combination of sounds and gestures, their markings flashing to show emotion. Some of the adults were shy and fearful, hiding in corners. But Nira was different. She was bold, inquisitive, and seemed fascinated by everything humans built. Leon noticed it almost immediately. While others avoided the machinery, Nira would peek over his shoulder as he calibrated a generator or tightened bolts on a repair drone. She asked questions, too many questions, and listened intently to every answer. She wanted to understand the logic of engines, the flow of energy through circuits, and even why humans slept instead of staying awake to work all the time. One morning, as Leon worked on a damaged atmospheric processor, Nira appeared beside him. She watched him twist a connector into place with careful precision. "Why do you always check the screws twice?" she asked, tilting her head. Leon smiled faintly. "If a screw is loose, the machine might fail. One loose screw can ruin everything." Her markings flickered bright yellow, a sign of curiosity. "Yes, everything," Leon said. "Machines are simple, but they demand respect." Nira nodded solemnly. "I wish I understood humans better. Do you promise things when you say them?" Leon paused. "What do you mean?" "When you say something, Is it always true? She looked at him seriously, as though weighing the value of his words. Well, usually, Leon said cautiously. Humans, we sometimes joke, or exaggerate. Nira's markings dimmed slightly. We SCIFI, we keep promises. They mean everything. Leon chuckled quietly. I see. Well, I don't mean to joke too much. But promises are important. Yes. She tilted her head closer, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. If you promised, if you said you would do something, even far in the future, would you do it? Leon frowned slightly, unsure how to answer. He had never been in a conversation like this. Nira was too young for a serious answer, and yet her gaze demanded one. Without thinking, Leon gave her a small smile and a soft joke. If you grow up and become an engineer, maybe I'll marry you and make you my chief engineer. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Nira's markings brightened in a stunning display of blues and greens. She giggled, a pure, ringing sound that made Leon's chest tighten for reasons he didn't fully understand. Really? She asked, her voice hopeful and teasing all at once. Leon held up his hands, laughing lightly. I'm joking, Nira, just a joke. But she didn't seem disappointed. Instead, she clapped her tiny hands together and said, I will remember. When I grow up, I will come back. Her energy was infectious, and even the adult SCIFI seemed amused by her determination. Leon shook his head, smiling to himself. Children. He thought he understood humans, machines, and logic. But he had never understood the force of youthful determination, especially from a species so different from his own. Before leaving the outpost, Nira pressed something into his hand. Leon looked down and found a tiny blue crystal, smooth and warm. It's for luck, she said seriously. You keep it, and I will come back. Leon laughed softly. I'll keep it. But remember, it was a joke. Nira's eyes sparkled. I know, but I choose to remember it anyway. She left soon after. The SCIFI refugees escorted by human personnel to a safer sector. Leon watched their ship depart, his heart strangely heavy. 10 years. 10 years would pass, and he would probably forget the incident entirely, he told himself. It was just a child's fancy, after all. Yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, he put the crystal on his workbench. It sat there through long nights of repairs, through moments of boredom and isolation, and through the endless hum of machinery in the outpost. Over the next decade, Leon changed in ways he didn't notice immediately. He grew into a senior engineer, renowned for his skill and resourcefulness. Outposts across the frontier requested his assistance with difficult repairs, and he traveled from station to station, solving problems that others could not. Machines obeyed him, as they always had, but humans and aliens alike began to respect him not just for his skill, but for his calmness under pressure and his ability to see solutions when all else seemed lost. Still, the memory of Nira, the little blue girl with glowing markings, lingered in the back of his mind. Occasionally, he would glance at the crystal on his bench, brushing a finger over its smooth surface, and think, she's probably grown up by now. Maybe she's safe. Maybe she's... Leon didn't finish the thought. He didn't know why the idea of her returned so strongly, but he dismissed it as a fleeting memory. There were engines to repair, circuits to calibrate, and systems to maintain. Life in the outer rim did not allow much time for idle thought. Then came the reports of pirate attacks escalating into organized raids. Frontier colonies were under threat, and isolated species were being hunted for their rare resources. Among the reports, one name kept appearing: SCIFI. They were targeted because of a rare organ unique to their species, one that could power advanced energy devices far beyond human capability. Leon's chest tightened as he read the reports. The small, Fragile beings, who had once fled to his outpost, were now in danger once more. The memory of Nira, the little girl who had so confidently promised she would return, returned as well. He reached for the blue crystal on his bench, holding it tightly in his hand. Its warmth seemed almost alive, as if it carried a message he was not yet ready to understand. That night, he stared out at the dark void beyond the station's glass walls. Stars flickered in distant patterns, and ships glided silently across the sectors. Somewhere out there, Nira might be alive. Somewhere out there, the SCIFI were struggling to survive. And somewhere out there, the joke he had made a decade ago might not have been a joke at all in her eyes. Leon did not know what the future held. He did not know if the little girl who had walked onto Epsilon 7 years ago would ever return. But he felt, deep in the quiet of his mind, that when she did, nothing would ever be the same again. Machines obeyed laws. Humans were unpredictable. But promises, especially the ones that lingered across a decade, were something even the galaxy could not ignore. And in the dark silence of the frontier, Leon Hale waited, unaware that his life, the life of the SCIFI, and the fate of the frontier itself were quietly beginning to intertwine. The quiet hum of Epsilon 7 was shattered one morning by the shrill alarm of incoming transmissions. Leon Hale, deep in the maintenance bay calibrating a plasma conduit, froze as the comm panel flickered with a signal unlike any routine status check. The transmission was coded, but the sequence immediately caught his attention, a pattern he had not heard in 10 years. His hands shook slightly as he tapped the screen, tracing the signal. It was a distress call. But not just any distress call. It was SCIFI in origin, and the identification code matched one he had given to a refugee shuttle long ago. His heart raced. The crystal Nira had given him sat on his workbench, warm under his palm, almost pulsing with a familiar energy. Impossible, he muttered. The station's sensors began to track a ship approaching the docking bay at high speed. The craft was sleek, small but fast, with markings of SCIFI origin flashing along its hull. Leon felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. The SCIFI he had once known as fragile refugees were returning, but this time, they were no longer children in need of protection. The docking clamps engaged, and the ramp slowly descended. Leon's pulse quickened as he saw a figure step onto the platform. It was Nira. She was taller now, her markings glowing with a controlled, almost regal energy. Her hair framed her face in a way that made her look both alien and familiar. She moved with the grace of someone trained, yet every step carried the weight of her purpose. When her gaze met Leon's, she paused, just long enough for the recognition to spark between them. "I came back," she said simply. Her voice was calm, confident, and carried the same melodic tone he remembered from her childhood. "You made a promise." Leon blinked. "Nira, He stopped, realizing words would fail him. She had grown from a playful, curious child into a determined adult. Her presence was commanding, yet there was the faint trace of the girl he had joked with 10 years ago. The SCIFI aboard her ship moved quickly to unload supplies and medical units. Leon's colleagues, many of whom had only read about the SCIFI in reports, watched in awe. But Leon did not notice them. His attention was solely on Nira, who now approached him with deliberate steps. "The pirates, they are not alone," she said, her eyes scanning the station. "They are working with someone. Something bigger. My people are being hunted for our energy catalyst organ. I need your help, Leon. You are the only one who can repair the device that can shield our worlds." Leon swallowed hard. For a decade, he had faced dangerous repairs, unstable reactors, and rogue frontier storms. But this was different. This was not just about machines. This was about life itself, about the survival of a species he had once laughed with and promised something too in a half-joking way. "I'll help," he said, steadying himself. "Show me the device." Neera led him to a cargo hold aboard her ship. The device was old, ancient even, unlike anything Leon had ever encountered. Its smooth surface was etched with complex SciFi glyphs, and small nodes glimmered faintly with dormant energy. "It's been dormant for decades," Neera explained. "It was built by our ancestors. Only the right combination of SciFi energy and human engineering logic can activate it. And I cannot do it alone." Leon knelt beside the device, studying its intricate design. He ran his fingers over the panels, checking circuits, nodes, and connections. It was unlike any human technology he had ever repaired. The logic was different, almost living, yet there was a pattern, something he could understand if he adapted his approach. While Leon worked, Neera observed him closely. Her markings flickered in shades of green and gold, emotions subtly shifting as she assessed his every movement. She did not speak, allowing him the space to focus. Yet her presence was reassuring, grounding. Hours passed. The SciFi engineers aboard the ship provided input, but it was Leon's human perspective that seemed to align the device's energy pathways. He adjusted circuits, recalibrated nodes, and guided Neera as she channeled her bioluminescent energy into the device. "Careful," Leon warned. "Too much energy at once could overload the system." Neera nodded, concentrating, her markings pulsing rhythmically. "I understand. We will synchronize." Finally, the device hummed. A low, steady vibration that resonated through the ship. Light spread along the glyphs, bathing the cargo hold in a soft blue glow. Leon stepped back, exhausted but exhilarated. "It's stabilizing," he said, eyes wide. "We might actually do this." But before they could celebrate, the alarm blared again. Sensors detected multiple ships entering the sector, fast, aggressive, armed with energy disruptors capable of penetrating human defenses. The pirates had returned, and this time, they were not interested in ransom. They wanted the SciFi, and they would not leave without taking the device. Neera's expression hardened. "We cannot let them reach the colony. If they do, everyone will be killed. Or worse, harvested." Leon took a deep breath, realizing the stakes had escalated far beyond his workshop repairs. "Then, we defend," he said firmly, "and finish this device at the same time." The station went into emergency mode. Human engineers and soldiers prepared defenses, while Leon continued his work on the ancient device, coordinating with Neera as she focused her energy. Sparks flew, warning lights flashed, and the station shuddered under the distant impact of the pirate fleet's approach. "Leon," Neera said quietly, placing her hand on his arm. "Do you remember the crystal?" He looked at it in his hand, the same small blue stone she had given him 10 years ago. It had been a simple token then, a child's trust, but now it carried weight, a symbol of commitment, of connection across time and species. "I kept it," he said, a small smile breaking through the tension. Neera's markings pulsed brighter. "Good. Focus. We need that trust. Now more than ever." Leon nodded. They worked together, human logic guiding mechanical precision, SciFi energy providing the essential power. The device began to glow brighter, sending a protective field radiating outward from the ship. The first wave of pirate ships fired their disruptors, energy beams slicing through space. But the shield activated just in time. The beams were deflected, harmlessly dispersing into the void. Human and SciFi crews watched in awe as the ancient technology, combined with Leon's expertise and Neera's power, held strong. But the attackers adapted quickly. Smaller ships tried to flank the outpost, forcing Leon to improvise. He calculated energy reroutes, modified the shield's angle, and coordinated defensive turrets. Neera responded instantly, channeling more of her energy into the device, strengthening its integrity. Through the chaos, their trust in each other grew. Nera had returned to fulfill a promise, but it was clear now that the promise had evolved. It was no longer a childhood joke, it was a bond, forged in danger, respect, and shared purpose. Hours passed. The battle raged, but the combination of human ingenuity and SCIFI energy began to turn the tide. The attackers' ships were unable to breach the shield, and several were forced to retreat. Leon and Nera moved with unspoken coordination, anticipating each other's actions, correcting mistakes before they became critical. Finally, the last wave of attackers withdrew, disappearing into the darkness of space. The station shook from residual impacts, and systems flashed warning lights. But the outpost and the SCIFI ship remained intact. Leon sank to his knees, exhausted, grime and sweat streaking his face. Nera crouched beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her markings glowed softly, reflecting a mixture of relief and pride. "You did it," she said quietly. "We did it." Leon nodded, unable to speak immediately. For the first time in his life, he realized that machines were not the only things worth fixing or protecting. Lives depended on skill, courage, and trust. Trust that had crossed species, decades, and a single, unlikely promise made on a day that had seemed ordinary. Nera stood, brushing herself off. "There's more work to do. The SCIFI colony is still at risk. But we have hope now." Leon looked up at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a child he had joked with, but as a partner, a leader, and someone who had chosen to return because she believed in him. "I never expected this," he admitted. "Not you. Not this. Not the responsibility." She smiled faintly. "You never know what promises will bring, but you kept yours, and that matters." Leon glanced at the crystal in his hand again. It was more than a memory now, it was a symbol of choice, of commitment, and of the connection between a human engineer and the little blue alien girl who had returned stronger than he could have imagined. As the outpost began repairs and reinforcements, Leon felt a quiet determination settle over him. The galaxy was dangerous, and the frontier was unpredictable. But with Nera, with the SCIFI, and with the skills he had honed for so many years, he realized that humans were capable of extraordinary things. Not just fixing machines, but protecting life itself. And somewhere deep in his mind, he knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed, the frontier had shifted, and the little blue girl who had once trusted him as a child had returned to ensure that their combined strengths could face whatever came next. Leon stood and took a deep breath, ready to face the coming challenges. He no longer doubted that the joke he had made all those years ago had grown into something real, something that could shape the destiny of a species, and perhaps the frontier itself. And as he worked alongside Nera, side by side, he felt the first true bond, form a bond not of obligation, not of accident, but of respect, trust, and shared purpose. In that moment, Leon Hale understood something he had never fully realized before. Promises, even made in jest, could echo across a decade, change lives, and ignite courage that even the galaxy could not extinguish. The battle had been won, but the war for the frontier was far from over. And together, human and SCIFI, engineer and blue-skinned girl, they were ready to face it. The stars beyond Epsilon 7 glittered like distant diamonds, but Leon Hale hardly noticed. The outpost was a hive of activity, emergency lights blinking, alarms muted, and the distant hum of the ancient SCIFI device filling the cargo bay. Every system had been checked, repaired, and recalibrated, yet the device was still not fully functional. Nera's energy flowed into it, but the alignment required a human mind capable of precision and logical calculation, the kind only Leon could provide. They had spent hours synchronizing. Leon worked with steady hands, adjusting conduits and calibrating nodes, while Nera's glowing markings pulsed in harmony with the device. Each pulse represented a thought, a decision, an effort to merge two different ways of thinking into one functioning whole. "This is it," Nira said softly, her voice calm but filled with determination. "If we succeed, the shield will cover our colonies. If we fail, they will destroy everything." Leon swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. Machines obeyed him. But this required something more than skill. It required trust, coordination, and timing. His mind raced, calculating energy flows, stress points, and stability thresholds. "We can do it," he said finally, meeting Nira's eyes. "We just need to synchronize perfectly." Nira nodded. She placed her hands over the device's core, glowing brighter than ever. Leon took a deep breath and positioned himself on the other side, fingers brushing the control panels, eyes scanning the energy matrix. He focused on the crystal she had given him long ago, its warmth now seeming to pulse in rhythm with his own heartbeat. It was more than a memory, it was a connection. A reminder that trust and promise could endure across time and space. The hum of the device grew louder. Energy arced across the nodes, forming intricate patterns that spiraled and danced like living light. Leon's fingers moved quickly, carefully adjusting conduits, redirecting flows, and stabilizing the circuits. Nira's markings brightened, then dimmed, then brightened again. A living pulse, guiding the device's energy. "Almost there," Leon muttered. "Just a little more. Recalibrate the third node. Then focus your energy at exactly 63%. Nira nodded without hesitation. "I understand." She concentrated, her bioluminescent energy flowing precisely where it was needed. The device shuddered, then glowed with a steady, even light. A protective field began to form, extending outward from the ship, spreading across the sector. Leon stepped back, exhausted but exhilarated. But the calm was short-lived. Sensors immediately detected multiple ships entering the system, pirate vessels, fast and heavily armed, attempting to strike before the shield could reach full strength. They fired energy disruptors at the device, beams slicing through space toward the outpost. Nira tensed. "We need to hold them off." Leon adjusted the device's output, rerouting energy to strengthen the shield. Sparks flew from overloaded panels, alarms blared, and the floor shook as the first disruptor hit the perimeter. The energy field rippled, absorbing the impact, but more beams followed. The attackers had learned, and they adapted quickly. "Leon," Nira shouted over the roar of alarms. "We need more power. I cannot maintain the shield alone." He glanced at her, seeing her determination and calm under pressure, and felt a surge of respect. "I've got you," he said. He began recalibrating the energy conduits, pushing the limits of the device, redirecting power from non-essential systems to the shield. Sweat dripped down his forehead, his hands moving with practiced precision. The device responded, the protective field glowing brighter, stronger. The pirate ships fired again, but their weapons began to fail against the reinforced shield. One by one, their beams were deflected, their attacks futile. Human and SCIFI crews watched in awe as the impossible combination of human engineering and SCIFI energy held against overwhelming force. But the attackers were clever. Smaller ships began flanking the outpost, attempting to bypass the shield. Leon calculated quickly, redirecting energy to different nodes, adjusting the shield's geometry in real time. Nira focused even harder, synchronizing with him, her markings flickering rapidly in response to every adjustment. Hours passed. Time seemed to stretch, filled with the roar of engines, the hum of energy, and the steady pulse of trust between human and SCIFI. Finally, the last wave of attackers retreated, forced to disengage by the unbreachable shield. The outpost shook, lights flickered, and panels sparked. But the SCIFI ship and Epsilon 7 were intact. Leon sank to his knees, exhausted, his uniform scorched and smeared with oil and sweat. Nera knelt beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her markings glowed softly, a mixture of relief and pride. "We did it," she said quietly. Leon nodded, finally allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. Nera's eyes met his. "I know, and we will protect them, together." There was a pause, the hum of the device fading into a steady, calm glow. Leon looked at the small blue crystal in his hand, the one she had given him 10 years ago. It had been a simple token of trust then, a child's promise. Now it was a symbol of something greater, something that had grown into real purpose, real connection, and real courage. "You kept it," she said softly, noticing the crystal in his hand. Leon smiled faintly. "I did. I wasn't sure why at the time. But now, I understand." Nera's markings shimmered in a gentle glow. Promises are powerful. Even those made as a joke can become real when we choose to honor them. Leon looked at her, truly seeing her not as the child he had joked with, but as a partner, a warrior, and someone who had chosen to return because she trusted him. "I never expected this," he admitted. "Not you, not the responsibility, not any of it." "You didn't have to," she replied. "But you chose to step up. That is what matters." As the outpost began repairs and reinforcements, Leon felt a new sense of purpose. Machines could be fixed, energy flows recalculated, and circuits realigned. But life, especially alien life, required more than skill. It required courage, trust, and the willingness to act when the stakes were highest. The SCIFI colony was still vulnerable, but the success of the device gave them a fighting chance. Other engineers and soldiers looked to Leon and Nera as leaders, their cooperation and mutual respect inspiring confidence. Where humans and SCIFI had once been separate, now they moved together as one force, combining logic, skill, and energy to protect life in the frontier. That night, after the immediate danger had passed, Leon stood on the observation deck, overlooking the stars. Nera joined him silently, her markings glowing faintly in the dim light. The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of unknown dangers, unexplored systems, and distant colonies waiting to be protected. "You kept your promise," Nera said, breaking the quiet. Leon looked at her, a small smile on his lips. "It wasn't really a promise," he said. "It was a joke. But you made it real." She smiled back, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I chose to. And now we can do more than survive. We can protect. We can build something stronger than fear or danger. Together. Together." Leon held the crystal in his hand, feeling its warmth. "Then let's make sure the frontier has hope. That the galaxy knows humans can be more than engineers, more than soldiers. That we can protect life, no matter the odds." Nera's markings pulsed with agreement. "Yes. Humans and SCIFI. Together, we are stronger than anyone imagined." In the quiet of the observation deck, side by side, human and alien, engineer and warrior, they looked out into the galaxy. For 10 years, a promise had waited, and now it had grown into action, courage, and partnership. The universe was vast, full of dangers that neither could face alone. But together, they would meet whatever came next. Machines, technology, and energy flows were important, but trust, courage, and promises, those were what truly shaped the future. And in that moment, Leon Hale understood something he had never realized before. Jokes made in kindness could become bonds that saved lives. Promises, even whispered between a human and a little blue alien girl, could change the course of history. The frontier was dangerous, unpredictable, and vast. But with Nera at his side, he felt ready for anything. They had faced the first storm together, survived, and won. And now, as the stars stretched endlessly before them, they were prepared to face the next, stronger than before, guided by trust, courage, and the promise that had begun 10 years ago. Together, human and SciFi, engineer and blue-skinned girl, they stepped into the future, ready to protect, ready to fight, and ready to ensure that hope, life, and courage endured in the galaxy they called home.